we have always getting better response from customers. Lot of footfall. From year 2015, we are participating in ProPak Asia Thailand. And this year also, due to COVID, there are lesser movement, but the key customer, who are our customer, and more people who are interested in our product are visiting frequently.
At first, Liquid Box planned to be in ProPak exhibition and have a booth, actual booth there anyway, because we know that people around the world will come to ProPak especially for the packaging business. However, the COVID situation did not support us that much to be physically being there to meet our potential client and also our partners. So ProPak has offered us a hybrid exhibition, which actually answering what we are looking for, because we still want to meet our potential clients and also our partner, but without physically being there. So that's why, with no hesitation, we actually participate in hybrid exhibition.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're dialing in from around the world. My name is Nerida Kelton and I'm the Executive Director of the Australian Institute of Packaging, and I would just like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Australian Institute of Packaging, Informa Markets and ProPak Asia to thank you all so much for coming online today. We obviously would have much preferred to have been with everybody in Thailand physically, but unfortunately for a second year in a row, sadly, we can't do that. And fingers crossed, next year we will be with you in person, because we absolutely love being a part of ProPak Asia. This is our third annual Global Packaging Forum, and we're really proud of the lineup of international experts that we have across our series. Tonight is the first of a four-part series, and this one will be held, the rest of the series, the three-part series will be held in September, so 15, 16 and 17th of September. And we will be talking about rethink packaging design tonight. And in September, we will be talking about reducing packaging, recycling of packaging and reusing packaging. So thank you all so much for coming online tonight. We really hope that you enjoy these amazing speakers that we have here with us from all over the world. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our moderator for this evening, Ralph Moyle, who's the Education Director of the Australian Institute of Packaging, and also the sole recipient of the Global WPO, World Packaging Organization Lifetime Achievement Award for this year. So we're extremely proud of him, and he's got his medal with him here tonight. So I'm going to hand over to Ralph and he will introduce you to the speakers, and enjoy the evening, and please jump into the chat function during the event and ask lots of questions. So thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Oh, that's a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Nerida. So at ECRUP, good afternoon, good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges through the packaging industry are many, and the challenges to our consumers and how we meet their requirements are significant. Tonight, we've got three fantastic speakers to address the key topic of rethink your packaging design. So many of the solutions to the challenges that we have today are back with the design, choice of the right material, the choice of the right application. And we've got three excellent speakers here to assist you tonight. Now, what I'm going to really ask all of you, please, is ask as many questions as you can. Put them up in the chat box. I will moderate through them when we get to the Q&A section at the very end. But please, pop as many questions in there as you like. Now, I'd like to hand over now to our first speaker, Professor Pierre Pienard, who is also the president of the World Packaging Organization. So, Pierre, with your vast experience and knowledge of things around the world, can we hand over to you now, please, on the first phase of rethink your packaging design?
Thank you very much, Ralph. Thanks for that introduction. And can I assume that my presentation is up on the screen?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful. When we look at the design aspects, and Ralph is right, it's time to rethink it. For me, there are four main points that I want to talk through. The one is that we need to be either 100% compostable or 100% recyclable or 100% reusable, one of those. We need to move towards a situation of using less, using things for a longer duration and use them again and again. We just need to get past COVID-19 at the moment, which is interfering quite substantially in this area. And then I'm going to end off the presentation on how do we empower consumers to lead their lives in a more environmentally positive way. Gandhi said many years ago, 100 years ago, there's enough on the planet for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. And how true is that all these years later? I have to ask the question, how well do you know your own customers? Why do I say this? I use one example in the cold supply chain. We think that when we put something into the cold supply chain, it comes out the other end, all good and well. However, during its transit, it breaches those temperature ranges, and that is what causes a lot of issues. And we need to control that fluctuation by means of packaging. So packaging comes into the story here. We also must look at the e-tailer's needs. In the past, we've looked at the retailer, and that picture's changing. The other picture that's going to change in time to come is having unmanned, seamless stores. So all those people you see in the photo there are consumers, clients, customers. There's no one in the store that you actually see working from a retail perspective. The growth of the middle-class income earners will make a profound effect and have a direct impact on how we do things into the future, as will digitalization in the retail sector. Our issue at the moment is it's the pressure that we are putting on the system. What do I mean by this? Simple as there on that screen in front of you are lots of veggies and fruit. And we want veggies and fruit anywhere, anytime. We're not in this, our forefathers and foremothers, they used to have fruit of the season. Why don't we? No, we want bananas in a cold European winter, and bananas are subtropical fruit. Let's have a look at the trends that are affecting our industry. The number one trend is our population. It directly impacts packaging. Packaging only increases as the population growth increases. If one looks at that population shock, and if you look at the graph, you can see there's a sudden surge around about 1950. What was that? And that is oil. Now, oil's been around for a long time prior to 1950. We're all aware of that. However, it started becoming really commercialized. And one of the byproducts of that is packaging in terms of plastics. What about the literacy across the globe? We have more literate people now than ever before, and that is impacting us as well, as is the increase in our purchasing power. And you can see all the yellow shaded areas shows exactly that scenario when we've got increased purchasing power. And then, of course, we have the health consciousness. And that has made a massive difference to the food that we put on the shelves. Now let's have a look at some of the challenges. And this is the exciting part, because this is why we're in this game. And the other, my co-speakers are the same scenario. They in this game because of the challenges. Globalization, some might call it deglobalization in some parts of the world. But certainly we are connected like never before. What happens in Japan today, we will hear about it tomorrow in the packaging game. At the same time, we have geopolitical uncertainty across the world. And we're seeing this more now than we've ever seen it before. And because of globalization, it impacts us immediately. And then, of course, the coronavirus. We just need to get over this. And with devastation, it's really rocked the entire world. And then, this is a sad scene, but we have a rising packaging waste problem. And we need to focus and do something meaningful about it. If I look just at plastics, for example, in terms of the cross-section of packaging, 8 billion. Now, that's a lot. That's a lot of plastic is flowing into the ocean every year. And only less than 20% across the world is recycled. That is a shocker. So we need to change our culture in many respects. What about the dual income earners? This is just a snapshot showing you in Canada, the scenario of 36% of that was 2 working families, 2 members of a family, whereas those nearly 70% in 2018 and increasing. And then, of course, the life expectancy. We're getting older, we're living longer. And that is impacting packaging as well. So we have to design accordingly. And what about the consumer behavior? That is changing. If one looks at the scenario of fresh fruit and vegetables 50 years ago and how they sold that, and if you look at the 2 bottom images, how they're selling it today, it's vastly different. And so we cannot leave without looking at the issues. Prediction, $9.4 billion will be spent on anti-counterfeit packaging by 2023. And that is a huge amount of money just to counter it. And then, of course, the publicity aspect. Packaging gets a lot of bad, negative publicity. And yet there's a need for packaging. We can't live our lives that we are unless we have packaging. We are part of the solution. We're not the problem. So who is driving packaging? Let's look at the opportunities. In terms of sustainability, an enormous amount of work is being done in this area. Reducing the consumption so that our impact on our environment is less, using less natural resources. That is paramount if we want to be successful in this area. And we need to focus more on extended producer responsibility around the world so that folk take ownership of what is being produced. If one looks at the growth across the world, according to Smith's Pira, then the 74%, so I call it 75% of all new sales by 2023 will come out of India, China, and Indonesia. So we need to focus in those areas. And the World Packaging Organization is doing just that, concentrating our efforts in those regions. Which brings me now to education. We need to educate more people, making them more aware of what's required to have a planet that is not decimating its natural resources. So we need to get into industry and help them. We need to look at the tertiary education and be involved in that arena as well. Let's not stop there. We need to focus on secondary packaging, secondary education in high schools. And we are. And never forget the primary, the little ones, the ones that really matter. They are our future. This particular scene is grade 1 in Southeast Queensland in Australia. But they absorb information like no one else. What about the reality? Folks, if we continue to do what we're doing and continue on the trajectory that we're on at the moment, we're going to require nearly 3 planet Earths in terms of natural resources. Or we can take the other approach and start better in correcting our habits at home in terms of recycling, being more sustainable, reusing, and repurposing. And ultimately, it's all about rethinking. Because, folks, we only have one planet, and we cannot have another Great Pacific garbage patch. Thank you.
Well, Pierre, there were some issues you've raised there. for all of us. And I think they're completely international issues, Pierre. They're not located to any one particular country at all. And it does, it's a little scary, I'd have to say, Pierre, what you put forward. But that's the reality, and that's what's confronting us today. And that's why we're here this evening, to encourage all of the participants to rethink their packaging design and consider it in their elements, in their business, in their formats. So Pierre, who better to follow you than an expert in design? So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring to the forum ProPak Asia. He's a board member of the World Design Organization and president of the Industrial Designer Society of Turkey. ProPak, over to you.
Hello. Thank you very much for the invitation. I would like to share my presentation at first. Do you see it? Let's please confirm. Is it okay, Ralph?
It is.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Superb
Thanks for
photo.
thanks for the invitation, dear representatives of the valuable packaging industries. I am bringing our good wishes from Istanbul to you. Thanks a lot. So I'd like to thank also for the behalf of myself and the WDO World Design Organizations for kind invitation. The short and long distances between us, with the help of digital technologies, as global representatives of industries in any situations, we are always ready to act together. Thousands of different designs. Let me go to the next slide. Yes. Thousands of different designs are included in our lives in almost every different sector. Packaging designs are also one of them. We touch some, we feel some of them, we are wearing some of them, carrying some are becoming off of our bodies, entering some like cars. And even though we cannot touch some, we feel them. They are the softwares and other things like the service business designs. So, but packaging designs are getting more and more plays in our daily life. After all of these examples have a common feature, it increases all these designs competitive power of the industry while making our life much more easier and producing a functional benefit and proposing an aesthetic form and increasing our quality of life. And packaging is design is another issue there, is really one of them and one of the key players in that creative business area. So the pandemic period within these years shows us that we need to focus more and more some areas, and the medical types are becoming a vision we should look at not only for the medical sector, for all these categories. I would like to underline this point of from my perspective. And we have seen ever stronger that we need to keep also children, elderly and disadvantaged groups, and all living things in our planet at the center of our process and design process. While bringing the first and third generations together, we should plan this intersection between all these categories, and our world needs to manage this intersection better, and packaging design and packaging categories is also one of them. The packaging and packaging sector, which is in our lives almost every moment, has become even more involved in our lives nowadays due to the pandemic and the decrease of the unpacked consumption and increasing of the consumption of the packed products worldwide with hygiene factors, and increasing in the number of sales on the e-platforms have also increased the market. The market is growing, yes. Revenues are growing, yes. However, the fact that our recycling has not yet completed its spread around the world suggests that there are longer paths ahead of the concepts of the sustainability. So there are a lot of things to do now. And when I look at as an industrial designers, I would like to thank again the packaging organization with the collaboration with WDO for the sustainable packaging design challenge. There are a lot of participants worldwide coming from all around the world. So I would like to thank again. Considering today's conditions, it should be taken into account that packaging to be designed provides all the tasks in sustainable way. There's a definition of industrial design, which is it's a strategic problem-solving process that drives innovation, builds business success, and leads to better of life through innovative products, systems, services, and experiences, we say. Just skip industrial part, keep it as it is design, same definition. Packaging design is again there. It's same as. So we are talking about a lot of reuse. I mean, recycling, reusing, reusability, reduction, upcycling. They are developing, but the things that we are doing is still not enough. As we can mention, and we can bring a lot of stories about it. The pollutions of the things that we consumed worldwide is becoming more or less the seventh continent at Earth. So this is one of the critical points I would like to bring out here. And the physical qualities, forms, quantities of the product to be designed and packaging and conditions and hygienically charm informations on product graphics systems, methods that we are using, a lot of criteria we have to underline. But I would like to bring out the United Nations SDGs here before going ahead. Most of the audience are they do know about it, but let me repeat it shortly. There are some criteria and which is reaching the more or less 170 corresponding targets. They are all related from energy to environment, from responsible consumption till the responsible production, and a lot of things that we have to keep all these criteria on our table, and 7 of them are very critical for WDO and the design societies for the product design and developers. So packaging playing an important role in all sustainable development and should not increase the burden of the environment within the life cycle. And also packaging should not harm the health of a person with whom it interacts during the production. These are the industrial designers and design perspectives of mine that I would like to underline. Thanks to Pierre, he has given a lot of enormous numbers. I'm not going to repeat any of them, but it shows us that there are very critical things in front of us that we have to go and that we have to fight for. We need to more and more. From production, transportation, ease of usiness and the process, packaging must meet the profitability targets, yes, but also the needs of the consumers and the manufacturers and make two-way profits. Even we are making a profit, it doesn't mean that we are also going to lose some things from the earth. So there are double profits from the worldwide, from the business-wise. It's very natural. It's also valid for the other categories of the designs. So becoming an environmental friendly energy and should be used during production phase and sustainable should be based on resource use. This must be produced with the maximum amount of recycled material, and the packaging design must be compatible with the product, or the product also compatible with the expectations from the packaging design. The amount of the weight of the packaging should be minimal. Design specifications meet customer expectations, and efficiency of the product, also efficiency of the packaging, also during its use and during its transportation, during developing this holistic systems. So it must retain the qualities of the product. It should allow the reuse of the packaging after the end of the product. So I believe that we have to design much more we have to design relationships between the product, between the packaging, and between the end user. We should focus on the reuse any of them, and we should focus on the replace them. We should focus on the upcycling of them. These are the things I'd like to mention in a couple of minutes. And the material selection is one of the most important steps for the packaging design. And another thing is paying attention to when choosing the right materials. These are the notes for the early developers and the freshmen and fresh guys who are trying to make an investment in this business area, or who are trying to make a responsibility and make a role in the business area again. And I would like to come to the point within this perspective. Earth, let's repeat and let's remember the earth again. Earth is a home that we are sharing together. Please remember this thing always, and let's keep it in our mind. Whatever we made the decision in our designing period, even for industrial design for product, even for making for packaging, even for another things, let's keep it in our mind. And following this, investing in our long-term partnerships with product and packaging and other services are very important for sustainability issues that all of the people coming from the business area of packaging also is one of them. We're talking on this, and so we need to repeat, we need to, as the title of this speech is rethink, we need to rethink all of this again, always. All of the professionals coming from this business area, from the business sector, should be the ambassadors of these criteria in our ecosystem. I would like to also mention Dieter Rams' 10 principles. I have noticed that we are industrial product designers underline all these things especially for product designers. Sometimes we are forgetting the products. Yes, they are going to be designed well. They are going to be much more aesthetic, technological, user-friendly, but there's also packaging. So these are the issues sometimes forgotten by the industrial product designers, that there's a holistic asset which also should be managed simultaneously. So we need to much more cooperate with also packaging designers. Good design is innovative. Yes, packaging design is also innovative. Good design makes a product useful. Yes, packaging design makes a product useful. Good design is aesthetic. Yes, packaging design is also aesthetic. Good design makes a product understandable. Packaging design makes a product understandable. Unobstructive, honest, long-lasting. Good design is true down to the last detail, same as is environmental friendly, as little as design as possible. So these are the things that we are talking about mostly in our design societies and the decision makers of the creative industries decision makers. What I would like to underline for this detail, nowadays, the changing of the consumption habits and the changing of the consumer behaviors, there are a lot of new things in front of us, developing and increasing of the e-business. I mean, we are ordering a lot, we are using a lot of packagings. Can we use these packs again? Can we make this worldwide? Or can we have a buy one more package for us that it can be, traveled worldwide, whatever we order, it can serve us? I don't know, maybe. Packaging also are saving the contents, containers. What is carrying? Maybe it's food. It's, how it is delicious or the healthy of it. It carries and it saves. Also, it's services. It brings whatever we order to us. It should be a healthy. Also, it should fit with the expectations of our, how can I tell you? Maybe lifestyles, the expectations. Cultural codes are very strong behind it. Wherever we ship something, wherever we design for the different ecosystems, we should pay attention to the expectations of the cost of the social and cultural backgrounds of the ecosystem or the target markets. And also, it should bring some solution or solutions to us, because it's the transportation wise, it's the usage wise, it's the storage wise, whatever it is. But there should be strong promises behind it. And then so it's going to bring us another thing. Maybe we can use it, we can reuse it in involving different functions in our offices, homes, or in ecosystems. So for this issue, I would like to also bring out another thing for our Industrial Designers Society. We're going to celebrate the 29th of June, Industrial Designers Day. We're talking about the diversity. Diversity is another issue for the design categories and design scenarios, also in packaging designers, in industrial designers, other categories of designers within this. So I am inviting all the professionals worldwide. Let's talk about diversity on the 29th of June in coming weeks. Hope to meet there, hope to talk there. I would love to answer your questions after the speech. So these are my quick notes without going into the numbers and details of the packaging industries, which is given all the professionals here in this panel. So thank you for understanding, and thank you very much for the kind invitation.
Oh, Sir Tak, it was a pleasure listening to it. And I must admit, I took a couple of really key points out of it. I really love those 10 principles of good design that you raised there. And perhaps we can talk about that in the Q&A session, as well as exploring more about World Design Day and the theme of diversity. So that would be fantastic if we can get to that point, please. Before I hand on to the next speaker, I'd just like to encourage all of you listening to look. You've had two speakers, and the next one, I'll tell you, he's fantastic as well. Please put some questions in the chat box for them, and let's learn something more out of this entire presentation this evening that can assist you in your particular role and the packaging design questions that you must have. Okay. Now I'd like to hand over to Richard Smith. He's a fellow of the Australian Institute of Packaging. He's also now the Director of Sustainability at Amcor Flexibles Asia. And he and his team have had some fantastic achievements in recent times, which I'm sure Richard is now going to share with us. Over to you, Richard.
Hi, Ralph. Thank you. And thanks, everyone, for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm just trying to get my presentation slide up.
It is up, Richard.
Fantastic. So I want to talk about flexible packaging and flexible packaging design today. And we've already seen that waste is a real issue that we need to address, and there's no avoiding the discussion and the point that we need to ensure that we stop seeing plastic and packaging finding its way into our oceans and waterways. The solution in real terms, and there is solutions to that, is that we need to actually address 4 areas, and those 4 areas more broadly can be spoken about as being the packaging and as design, the waste infrastructure and the waste infrastructure design, our collection and consumer behaviour, and then also what I would call advanced recycling infrastructure. If all of those things can come together, we can certainly address the issues that we see of plastics in the oceans. And it's really, in terms of the discussion tonight around design to be recyclable is the beginning of the journey of change that we need to ensure that we get, particularly around flexible packaging. When we design our packaging to be recyclable, when it is eventually collected, it's going to be of high value and able to be recycled. And that's crucial for then being able to actually have materials that can be returned back into packaging, and crucial to ensure that we have the consumer engagement that we're seeking to have across the whole value chain with ourselves as, like myself as a packaging manufacturer, but all the way through brands and government. We want to ensure that we engage consumers to enable them to know that their materials that they are recycling are actually getting recycled. But the key to that journey starts right at the start with design. Now, there are good design guidelines that have been issued for the recycling of flexibles. And these design guidelines, if you want to look them up even further in detail, come through from a project called Project Barrier that was run under the auspices of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And what those guidelines have given us is a real strong understanding of what's necessary to build into our flexible packaging, to design into it such that it actually is recyclable. And what we can see on the screen here is what's come out of those guidelines being a more preferable design set of guidelines and the minimum criteria as well. And so for flexibles, the crucial element here is more preferably to move towards mono-material type structures. In other words, structures that have 90% or more of, say, polypropylene or polyethylene. You can also see that more preferably there's no PVC or no PVDC, no foil or PET included in those designs, and we try to limit other polymers to less than 5%, like EVOH or nylon. That's a more preferable position. The minimum sort of position is, again, having polyethylene or polypropylene, but with an allowance that says you can have a mix of those, and as long as they're greater than 80%, that should be great. It's still, though, as you can see, no PVC or PVDC or aluminium or PET, and other polymers limited to 10%. So that's sort of been set as the minimum criteria. And if you want, there's more information available if you go online and look at CFlex or the project barrier under the Ellen MacArthur. Now, just to give you some insights onto the use of those guidelines, some really great work that has been done by Amcor around the world. For instance, if you know something about retortable pouches, they're historically been made up of multiple materials, may have included foil, may have included nylon, cast polypropylene, whole variety of materials. Here we see a retortable pouch that's been designed and developed that meets all of those guidelines. It's polyolefin based, and it's got all the barrier requirements that we expect of a flexible pouch for shelf-stable materials. It's a fantastic design outcome in this regard. We're also seeing, for instance, now with Amcor and our space related to medical and pharma products, that we've eliminated now the use of PVC from blister packaging. Now, we know that we all want our medical products to be safe and usable and also child resistant and senior friendly. And this has all been achieved, and we've been able to eliminate the use of PVC and be able to apply those guidelines from Project Barrier. And one of the more interesting developments more recently that goes hand in hand with these Project Barrier guidelines is that we've demonstrated the ability to use food-grade post-consumer recycled materials back into a commercial product for, or a demonstration of a commercial product for Nestle and their Kit Kat wrappers here in Australia. And this is really ultimately the rationale of why we want to put these design guidelines from Project Barrier into place, because it will enable really high valued materials to be collected and ultimately recycled, and mean that we can close the loop and incorporate post-consumer recycled materials back into our packaging. And that's really what all good design is all about in terms of being much more sustainable. So those are the main points I really wanted to touch on today. I hope you found that useful, and I look forward to your questions. Thanks, Ralph.
Fine, Richard, and thank you for mentioning the Kit Kats. I still got that packet, Richard. I've been so tempted to eat it because it is somewhat of an Australian snack, so I better explain what it is. It's like some biscuits that are wrapped in chocolate, and it's the kind of thing that once you've had one, you can't stop. Let me just characterize it like that.
So true.
Yeah, it is. So, Richard, let's start with some questions, and let's stick, if you wouldn't mind, with the story behind this one, because I'm fascinated with it. I know you and I have discussed it previously, but if we can share it a bit with the audience, because it has a real technical side to it, which is really interesting. But it's also got a lot of consumer involvement, and the whole team of people that became part of that collective, which started from really an idea to fruition, and it all happened, if I recall, in about 3 or 4 months at the absolute tops. And
Mm.
I personally believe it's one of the opportunities where we can truly recycle soft plastics back into food packaging safely. So could you just tell us the story, the background behind Nestle and all of the other members that are part of that team that generated this really creative bit of packaging?
Okay, well, so it is a good story. The story is about collaboration across the industry, which is incredibly important. And it actually included the consumers as well. So for people tuned in today, in Australia, you can actually take your packaging back to your retailer, to the supermarket, and have it collected. And there's also a trial happening, which Nestle have been right behind to establish whether flexible packaging can be collected from homes and thereby also recycled. So that program was underway, and a number of people in the industry got together and said, well, why can't we just demonstrate and show that we can actually get those collected materials from the store, from the homes, and show them how they could get back into packaging? And that's exactly what happened. A group of like-minded people from the recycling industry, a company called IQ Renew, from Licella, who have advanced pyrolysis technology, all the way through to Viva, who produce oil and run a refinery here in Australia, to LyondellBasell that make the polypropylene, to Tagleaf that make the biaxially orientated polypropylene, and then to Amcor. And we were able to join together and collaborate and show that it is very possible to have food grade post-consumer recycled material included into the package, and that this was something that really industry we could all aspire to, all starting obviously from really good design of packaging in the first place.
Look, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great story, and I encourage you to read further on it. But the bit that struck me wasn't just the technical smarts of it, Richard, and there's plenty of that. It was just how quickly the group came together and made it work. People have been talking about it for years, but when someone started it off, it really clicked, and it worked particularly well. Are you aware of any other areas throughout Europe or North America where chemical pyrolysis is being used to recover soft plastics?
Yeah, there are a number of facilities running, and it's very early days at the present time. So a plant that's at scale might be producing something in the order of 20,000 tonnes of, or processing 20,000 tonnes of materials per year, and that can be scaled up. And there's a number of those around the world that are operating, but it's really right at the beginning. It's right at the infancy. So the supply of such materials is quite restricted right now. We would be excited to, and we're working very hard to try to ensure that we can actually have such materials available across Australia, New Zealand, and across Asia Pacific. But we're right at the start of that journey. But we're certainly looking and collaborating across the supply chain to ensure that can actually happen.
Because of all the consumer research I see, Richard, and that's in abundance, plastics and what we're doing about it is in the top 3 responses of all consumers regarding food items in particular. So thank you for that. I'll let you rest for a moment now, Richard. I'm going to move on to Zyrtec, because he in his presentation there's a couple of points I would really like him to develop a little further. And I really wanted, Zyrtec, for you to explore further the underlying holistic patterns and purposes, and especially thinking, that go towards having good design. Could you explore that holistic thinking for me a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Ralph. It starts from the idea. Idea comes back from the new technology, new materials, or new habits of the existing consumers and customers, or new expectations of the new ecosystems, new needs, whatever it is. So our designers are starting to develop conceptual solutions for these ideas or needs, let's say needs. Starting to this, I mean, it's very important threshold. because evaluation of ideas and confirmation of them, also targeting the markets, because it can be changed. I mean, it may be different in India, it may be different in Turkey, it may be different in Germany, I don't know. So all these transaction period, especially we are cooperating with the engineers, researchers, also technical people, and also marketing, and also some numbers which are coming from the real targets, and we are making benchmarks of the competitors, let's say. But more or less, I calculate more than 6-7 critical thresholds during the product design and development cycles. I mean, one is coming from the results of the research. It says solid data for you. The second one is maybe much more abstract, which is design, the design language asset, which you are going to evolve to the product or product portfolio, whatever it is. It may be a car, it may be, the household item, it may be another thing, I don't know. So one is the idealization, second is the conceptual, third is the validation, and the fourth is the going to the market. Between all these, there are also some critical things. But all these, within all these cycles, I haven't told you anything about also the packaging. I don't ask anything to packaging designer, and I don't get any response from him or her, something like that. I mean, but if it is a holistic or if it is a collectively designed scenario, we should, all creative guys should talk to each other, because all of the critical leaders of these critical thresholds are creating and designing innovative assets. Some are maybe based on technology, some are maybe based on marketing, some are maybe based on the habits of the consumers and expectations, whatever it is. And some are also based on, which is quite even and very important, sustainable things. It doesn't, I mean, you can make a very sustainable packaging, but it's so meaningless, it's so meaningful. I'm going to tell you something. If the products in the box is not eco-friendly and it's not behaving for the expectations coming from the sustainable part, so this is the thing. It's a holistic thing. Whatever we do, we should, all of the guys who are the critical decision makers on creative things. I'm calling all these under the title of the creative industries, because some are measurable, some are not measurable things. I mean, you can measure in next, 2 years, in long term, I don't know. So this is the critical point for me, managing all this under the table, under the title of holistic approach, and also within the perspective of collective behaving. So these are the things. So at the end, if you have a good design, it must be a good holistic design. If it's a innovative, yes, it should be a good holistic innovative. But it doesn't mean that let's make an innovative product. No, if it is innovative, there should be a thing, there should be a solution helping for all of the people who are living on this planet, or we are all sharing this planet. There should be a benefit. So these are those 10 criteria, which is very important, designed by Dieter Rams for Brown, but which is still same for me. And we can add another new understanding and new expectations. But generally, the product design and and also the packagings, communication, positioning, all these should say something to this planet, should say something to the user, should say something to the investor, should say something to the, who are owing this solution. These are the things that I would like to underline. It's a good design, good solution, being innovative and being eco-friendly, and accepting the sustainability issues. So this holistic approach for me is saying to me, please think collectively, please make collectively, and please try to solve in the holistic manner. That's the thing in my mind.
Thank you, Sarah. I noticed in your presentation you made observations there regarding the World Design Challenge, and if I recall correctly, you had well over 100 participants in that challenge, which must have been fantastic to be a judge there. From those 100 participants, could you sort of discuss the top 2 or 3 themes that came out of that challenge and that you took on board and you thought, my God, there's some really good design features there. These students are coming on brilliantly. Can you share some of your experiences of that World Design Challenge, please?
Right. We are now in a very interesting period worldwide. I will reply you starting from my another experience. I will come to that point. The design challenge organization for COVID-19. Once it starts globally, more or less March, I have seen that every reps of the creative industries and design societies, they are ready to help to each other. But I have seen another thing. These representatives of the computer science and the code writers are ready to help with the ready to help to also creative industries coming from the design societies. So the meaning of also the players of the teamworks or the collective works are a little bit changes. It changed in last, especially in 1 year, and a lot of new and fresh ideas come from that challenges. So packaging is one of them. I'm also following this, the reports of this. For example, the habits of consumption skills has been changed. E-commerce is getting, the numbers of the users of this platform is going up and up. So there are a lot of unbelievable solutions and proposals for this perspective. Whatever it is, you can reuse maybe the existing package of your order. How? We don't know how, but it can be done worldwide. It's something like that. And also, can you have your own package which you order?
You mean personalized packaging?
Yeah, well, you can have it and you can reorder, you can send it. It's like the business-wise, big, giant, and also ugly, the boxes, at the customs or something like that. I'm talking about the custom, the big one. I forgot the English terminology of the big, 20 meter, 10 meter, something, the metals. So the thing is, within this scenario, we all remembered that human is again, and he was or she was already there at the center of all the processes. Whatever we do more for the humans who are living in this planet, and who they do have some needs and some helps from the business-wise businessmen, from the sciencemen, from the bureaucracy, from the governments, whatever it is. So packaging is, Ralph, I'm going to finish, is really in our life, in every minute, in every hour, we consume, we buy, we are doing something with them. The thing, the scenarios coming from the participants, very extraordinary things about reusage and of the packagings, also reduction of the using numbers of the packagings, and the making much more sustainable life for this planet.
Okay, thank you for that comprehensive answer, Sertak. And I'd like to engage you now, Pierre, because I do recall that you were also part of that World Design Challenge, and I'd like to propose the same question to you. We had over 100 participants in that challenge. What were the top 3 themes that you took out of that that particular challenge, and particularly relating it to our question of tonight of rethinking how you go about your packaging design.
Thanks, Ralph. Well, firstly, I cannot give you the exact, I'll answer your question in a roundabout way without giving you too many details, because those details haven't been released to the media. Mm-hmm. So I think what was exciting in that whole challenge was bringing the two organizations, two large global organizations, together around the table, and the World Design Organization and the World Packaging Organization, which was, it took about 8 months in the making to get to the stage where the actual challenge itself happened. But to bring those amount of people together to set up a challenge in the way that it was done, and you mentioned correctly, there were over 100 people involved, and the numbers were in fact limited, and so folk they actually make application to be involved in the program, which is quite unusual, I thought. But there has to be some sort of process of selecting the best designers. And then there was a mix and match. You mentioned the students. I'd like to just add to that. So it wasn't only students involved. They had a lot of folk from industry, like Certec and guys like that matched with those students. So each group had a number of folk that had many years of experience, as well as folk with a few years of experience, as well as design students from 3rd and 4th year university. So it already was quite a unique scenario. But then the second part that was even more challenging was bringing the different countries together. And you've got different cultures and different language groups, but all working towards the same target. And that was in itself a challenge. And then to add to that, which many of us, certainly Nerida and myself, I think we are geographically badly located in these sort of events, simply because for us, it was going online at 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. That is when our slot came on. And so your whole pattern for those 2 weeks, your sleeping patterns were changed. So it was a challenge. I mean, I think we did well. I remember a couple of times, having a nap beforehand and then waking up at about 12 and then going online at midnight, and then trying to get back to sleep at 3 in the morning scenario. But it was so exciting that you overlook those sort of scenarios and those sort of petty worries, I would say, or petty concerns in one's life, because it was an exciting event. Seeing something emerge day after day over that 2-week period, bearing in mind it was every day for 2 weeks that the various groups came together. And we from the WPO were sort of more in a capacity of helping from a packaging technology, material science, that sort of perspective. We were not involved in the actual design. So it won't be long, and we'll see all the results across the media. Great challenges were put out there. There were 7 different challenge statements. So there were 7 groups, each one taking on 8 particular challenge statements, and then coming up with a solution as to how they would overcome that particular problem or that issue that we are currently presented in our, bearing in mind that we were driving towards a sustainable solution.
Thank you, Pierre. And well, Nerida, you were part of that World Design Challenge. Have you got any thoughts that you'd like to share with us as to your takeout and how important that rethinking about packaging design really is to successful businesses?
It was really, really wonderful to be a part of the challenge and to watch that collaboration that Richard was talking about. So not only collaborating across different roles and functions within the industry, but also across countries. And cultures and their experiences, consumer experiences, were really quite remarkably different. And I know the challenge that I supported was around food waste, and it was certainly really interesting to see different people's perspectives, from industrial designers and engineers and their perspectives to, you know, people in the industry that are new to the industry, that are packaging designers and technologists, and then also the students, so the future generation, as I like to call them, that are going to come in and be amazing packaging professionals. So it was really good to watch the ideation emerge over the 2 weeks and see how people can collaborate across the world. And I think it goes back to what Richard said. It's the only way we can rethink packaging design is through collaboration.
Good. Thank you very much, Nerida. I'd just like to, I've got one more question for each of the speakers, and then I think we'll call it a close for the evening. So, Richard, I'd like to pose your question here. You're recommending the use of Project Barrier and the CFlex guidelines, and excellent choice for flexible packaging design. But what happens if a country has a different set of guidelines? What would be your recommendation?
Sure. And I suppose it's a good question, Ralph. And where we're in situations where there might be design guidelines in a country, we obviously always defer to those. But I have found situations as well, Ralph, where the design guidelines are not quite as detailed, or maybe even not as stringent to some degree as what Project Barrier is asking for. And in those situations, you know, my recommendation still to us that are designing packaging and working to design packaging would encourage us to utilise those design guidelines and talk to our partners and who we're collaborating with to think about those and potentially be able to still use them even where other design guidelines exist. So, because I think if we can become much more unified globally on these things, it would certainly make it easier for the whole of industry to become circular.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard. Sertak, my last question for you for this evening is, can you discuss briefly how important strategy is behind the purpose of having good design?
Very, very important, very important. As Richard said, I mean, for sustainable design and to be able to manage the design DNAs, we should have the design guides and design language for the brands. That's okay, number one. But most of the companies, even they do have, the rest they don't have. I will come to your question saying something and then sharing one more information. There's a one research in Europe. More or less 85% of the companies, business-wise, they do make a collaboration with design, let's say, design as a part of the business. 15% more or less, they do have the service. 45% they do have a strong in-house design team, something like that. There are different numbers. If you are very well organized company, and if you have a very well organized business-wise investors and even having these services from outsourced companies, it means that you are on the right way, you are going somewhere. Why? If there is no strategy, it means that there is no any critical, measurable criteria for abstract solutions, which is given by the design studios, even in-house or outsourced, to you. It may then it's becoming your critical understanding of, as a leader of, let's say, marketing, as a leader of whatever it is, as a business leader. So it is becoming a personal. Strategy is much more important. Why? We were talking about it, the holistic and collective approach. If you are willing to make it collectively, you should have your own design strategy at your organizations. But how? I will be very quick again. From the operational period to the managerial one to the strategic part. Design should take its own place at the strategical part of the companies and the investors. If it is there, it is becoming much more strong, and there are a lot of things to say to the board. So design is there. So it's very important, right?
Thank you very much. And Pierre, I'm going to, the last but I think the most important question of the evening I'm going to put to you. Is education really that important, Pierre?
Do I need to answer that question, Ralph? I mean,
I'm inviting you to do so.
You know, it's knowledge. You know, Mr. Nelson Mandela said years ago, 25 years ago, education is power, and that's exactly what it is. To gain knowledge, without us understanding, and how do you understand? You understand by gaining knowledge. And we need to understand, and Richard was correct in how he approached that. You know, we've got all these new technologies. More people need to know about them. Otherwise, we cannot turn this downward spiral. And you saw the images at the end of my presentation, and the start of Richard's was all that waste materials lying on the beaches or in the sea. How do we change that? We need to educate them. And that's why you saw in my presentation, I went as far as even grade ones, because they're the future.
Yes,
you know, I always have this philosophy. The philosophy, we can't change the grandparents, their minds are set, but we can change the little ones' minds and get them in the right frame of mind, and they will influence their grandparents about how and what to do with used packaging once you remove the contents. Because that's what it is. Every piece of litter that is left in the environment was placed there by someone. It doesn't just arrive there. So, you know, what do we do with that packaging once we remove the contents? And that is what we need to educate from grade one right to the grandparents.
Thank you so much, Pierre. May I just thank you firstly, Nerida Kelton, for coordinating with the ProPak team and getting this first seminar up and running. So thank you very much. To each of the speakers, Professor Pierre Pienaar, Sir Tak Asan, and Richard Smith, thank you very much for your contributions this evening as we tackle the topic of rethink your packaging design. To each of the attendees that are there, thank you so much. This is the first of the seminars that ProPak Asia has put on. I encourage you strongly to enroll and be part of the subsequent sessions that are coming on. And please take those words that Pierre just closed with there. The more you learn, the more powerful and strong you become, and the more viable you are in your career. And I strongly encourage you to continue your learning journey. Now, I'd like to hand back to the ProPak team for the final closing of this evening's session. Thank you, ProPak.